incredible movement and protest was, from one hand, very surprising to all of us. The people that wanted change in Israel and could never have anticipated that it will become so big and wide, and for the government and the people that have the power to decide in Israel.
In other countries, there's quite a respected and long culture of resistance, of protest, and in Israel, it's something that 2 years ago just started. I mean, it's the first years. We're just learning to walk. You know, the resistance is a baby. It is 2 years old.
The protest movement started when a girl named Daphne Leaf brought out her and her friends, brought out a sofa and put it at the start of Rothschild Boulevard. As I said before, they didn't really think that it's going to go anywhere. They think they're going to be evicted at the end of the day.
I felt like I have purpose. I'm a part of something. I didn't care if I'm the leader or if I'm not. It didn't matter to me. What matters is that I felt like I'm a part of a collective that cares about something bigger.
Can you imagine Angela Merkel, holding a dialogue with people on Occupy Frankfurt or whatever? Just sitting in their tents, a couple of kids. But this was what happened here.
A lot of women took place in this protest, which from my own point of view is a very encouraging thing to see.
I started being an activist, full-time activist, on 2011.
Activism was some kind of like a bizarre hobby 2 years ago, for people that, they do activism, okay, they don't have something better to do. And now it became mainstream.
Of course, there was the inspiration from Madrid and maybe even from our own neighbors that took the power to their own ends in Yemen, in Egypt, in Tunisia.
What was really, really obvious when we started it, when it was still pure, without the politicians trying to go in and change things around, is that people in my generation, your generation, are really lonely.
And it's kind of ironic that the social process only succeed that well because it came out from the higher middle class and not from the lower middle class or from the really poor people, the really poor families that were already in the streets for years.
I think that the big miracle of summer 2011 here in Israel was that it was suddenly okay to share and to talk about what's happening, and the kind of stigmas and the kind of thoughts that capitalism in Western society and postmodernism puts upon us, that I am the individual, everything is on me. If I'm successful or unsuccessful, if I'm rich or poor, whatever happens is just me. And that eroded in summer 2011 here.
Here behind me, you can see where the first tents were set up.
Here, when the protest began, were the first votes, the first democratic votes. Hand raised, who wants to stay here for the whole weekend? Then we talked in manners of weekends and days and hours.
We put our tent here. We put a big banner with. We put the banner with the name of the trade union and everything. And here we started doing all kinds of activities.
Soon enough, the whole Rothschild Boulevard, 2 kilometers long, was covered with tents, and a lot of community activities was happening here. And the headquarters was settled just behind me, next to the kitchen. One of the kitchens, there were several.
And also on the other side of the sidewalks, eventually people start pitching tents. You couldn't move here at all. And they slept here. Right? You had people here day and night, and they brought generators, and they started putting music, and it was a circus. It was a complete festival.
This was my campsite 2 years ago now, in summer of 2011. This is where I spent almost 2 months. I got here about a month after the protest and the tent city actually started. I'm a latecomer. I wasn't one of the organizers. I'm one of the joiners, and I'm very proud of that.
During the process, it felt like we have to do something right here, right now, on the street, get out of the lecture halls and come to the people.
At the beginning, I just wanted to bring food to the people who are sitting in the tents. I wasn't realizing that it was connected to me. But then I got there and I saw that it's about everything. It's not only about poor people or mid-class, it's about everything.
If you just began walking from Rothschild through, all through the street, you would see just any grievance. If you wanted to know what's wrong in Israel, here was an encyclopedia.
So a lot of frustration, but again, without any real specific address. Who is to blame? The government is to blame, the occupied territories are to blame, the banks are to blame, the very rich people that live in Israel are to blame. This wasn't really clear.
There were 87% of support from the public. 10% of the population went out in one night, which made us one of the biggest, largest protest movements around the world when it comes to the ratio between the amount of people. It's like 30 million Americans would go out.
Leading copywriters and art directors from leading advertising agencies in Israel, working all day to create posters and messages and slogans and viral videos. I mean, this didn't just happen. It was a lot of work from very, very talented people, all of it to promote social justice.
We started to work on Facebook, to work on Twitter, and to do a buzz, to make everybody start talking about it, to do a campaign, and to go all over the place. Like, this is it, you have to come, everybody just have to come, and not only you have to come, everybody have to bring 5 people. Each one of you bring 5 more. So there was like a big campaign, bring your 5.
Rothschild is a very, very symbolic location. First of all, you have the bank's headquarters right here. Law firms, startup companies, the richest of the most strongest people in Israel work here. This is the elite. So, and another symbolic factor was that this house right here was the house where the state of Israel independence was declared right here. And during the protest, actually, there was a bit of a performance piece where people actually came here and did a rereading of the Independence Declaration, the Independence Bill, just to kind of show that a new Israel was forming.
Other people wanted to start up their own local tent camps around Israel, so there will be more other focus for this protest. It won't be only a Tel Avivian thing, only concentrated on Tel Aviv, in the richest streets of Tel Aviv. They wanted something that will reach other people, maybe people that are not so involved in the bohemian life of Tel Aviv, people that are from another socioeconomic background, from another ethnic background.
One of the problems was the people that were really under difficulty, the people that were most harassed by the government and by the police, the people who were living in tents, not because they were like me choosing to make a protest out of living in a tent, but people who had been genuinely kicked out of their home were still in the periphery. because the center remained on Rothschild Street in Tel Aviv.
Here was the corner named Rothschild Tahrir, the corner of Rothschild and Tahrir. Here were the democratic gatherings of the tent encampment and Rothschild held after the first week.
Someone held a big sign that says Ihal, which means go away in Arabic, right? As a sign that also solidarity with the people in Cairo that were doing what we thought the same thing. We thought we were doing the same thing. But the leadership, so to speak, the people who organized it, they didn't ask for the same thing.
People here were the culture, not the counterculture. They didn't come here to protest capitalism. They came here to protest something that went very wrong within capitalism. They wanted the fair capitalism. They wanted the restrained capitalism, but they didn't want a socialist system.
People knew that things are wrong, but they couldn't really formulate why. And they couldn't really formulate alternatives because the current way, the capitalist way, neoliberal thinking is so rooted into the discourse in Israel that it was hard to people to think about other alternatives. For them it was either capitalism or communism. There was nothing in between. And we tried to show that there is a middle way, another way to do things.
We brought in our political line. We had people coming in lecturing, talking about, we said that this protest has to talk about the occupation, it has to be political, it has to demand to go into elections, and we came here and that's what we did.
The big paradox of the protest in Israel was that the bigger it got, the less influential it got. It was. It was quite amazing. For the first 2 weeks of it, the government was seriously stressed out.
You can feel the people were angry. You can feel they came out, and I remember thinking, I actually felt sorry for the Prime Minister, for Bibi. People really seemed to not like him, right? It was a lot of anger.
The system that is about individuals, fighting each other, not individuals knowing how to live together. That's what they were so scared about. Because when you are together, then you have power.
Now, the big disappointment was that the street had such energy in it, such vibes in it, that they were dancing and singing, and you felt like you were in the streets of Egypt, in Cairo, as demanding that the government will come and the end of the occupation and for change.
The people that wanted to take place in that protest were so scared that being identified with one side of the political a political wing, this a left or right, and then the other people will take back.
So the extreme right came, also first of all to show that they have economic problems too, and then to provoke, to provoke. So they came with T-shirts saying, "Kick all immigrants out, kick all the Sudanese immigrants out," and build houses in the settlements to solve the housing crisis, and like a huge provocation. And there was a tent down the line of, it was called the 1948 tent. A couple of Arabs activists did it to commemorate, the Nakba, the 1948, independence war from the perspective of the Arab community, of the Palestinians. And it was torched 2 times the tent. So, you know, and there were lots of tensions. They claimed the extreme right-wing activists did it, and there was a lot of tension. But it was also dissipated in a way, because there was an actual dialogue. I mean, there were a few instances where it almost came to physical fighting, but then they managed to sit, you know, everyone in a circle, the extreme right, the extreme left, and to hash it out and talk. It was actually quite a beautiful moment. A day later, the extreme right left because, you know, they did a provocation. So that was the end of that dialogue. But for a moment there, it seemed like we could actually speak together, all Israelis of all the political spectrums.
They wanted to include so many people. I think their intentions were good, basically, but it was a bit naive. And eventually it started to take its toll from the protest, because it became pointless. It became too polite and too civil and too general.
We said this protest should talk about the occupation and should ask for demonstration, and they didn't want that. They said, if we do this, the next demonstration, nobody will come. It will seem radical left, it will seem too red, it will seem too left-wing and weird, and we will lose the support of the people.
I had a lot of power in my hands. I was thinking about what I can, you know, what is the best use of it and how do I do it responsibly, and understanding that this is not mine to own, that I am an ambassador for something bigger that has a lot of opinions.
When the social protests start to grow and become a mass movement, then the government started to pay attention to it. They set up a committee, the Trachtenberg Committee, that was supposed to find solutions to the problems that the protesters brought up.
And apparently it worked. Nobody really, you know, knows for sure why, because Netanyahu has set up about 30 or so committees. None of them actually amounted to anything, but this one, the public actually ate it. So right then, the protest started to decrease.
While the protesters felt that the market is the problem, the Trachtenberg Committee tried to find the solutions through the market.
People still came here. It was a big party, and the party got only bigger. But the protest itself decreased, and since then he stopped caring. He stopped having a dialogue. He stopped holding press conferences. It was clear that nothing is going to happen, because if at that moment, the height of the protest, nothing happened, if after 350,000 people came and this whole revolutionary atmosphere in the streets and nothing happened, nobody blocked, you know, the highway, nobody burned the car, nobody did anything, no one did that. If nothing happened then, nothing will happen after.
One of the things that I was really proud of is that I spent a month and a half sitting here in front of that place with all the anarchists and activists and, you know, many different people who were very angry at this building, and there was no brick, no paint, there was no violence towards the people coming in and out of the bank.
If you ask any activist you know, involved in the protest, they will tell you the students did an enormous amount of damage. Because right away there were two camps. The student union was very conservative and the activists were very not conservative, and there was always a clash between and what happened was, here was the tent of the students, their part of the encampment. They moved from the beginning of Rothschild to here so nobody would hassle them. And They would bring ministers and members of Knesset right here to speak to the public and so on. Everybody came, everybody. Other than Benjamin Netanyahu, there was nobody who wasn't here.
On one hand, they financed a lot of, practically financed a lot of equipment and tents and buses and stuff. But then on the other hand, it was a personal campaign of the person that was head of the union to the Knesset.
There was a crisis within the protest movement. Some of the leaders of the protest were split among themselves and had different idea of what they should do. Some went into politics, some decided they shouldn't go into politics, they should try to form an alternative outside of the parliament. And many decided that they should do the change in their own life.
And some people went to politics. I'm being prosecuted by the state, so everybody is doing something that is a bit different.
The real hard work has to happen within me and within the close circles that I work with, because if me and my revolutionary friends can't lead something in a way that is democratic and in a way that is fair and in a way that kind of shows the values of the world we want to live in, how can we expect the government to do that? How can we expect society to do that?
From my own point of view, the protest failed eventually because it, for a very long time, tried to avoid the political side of it, which was inevitable. Because talking about priorities in society, you can't avoid one of the biggest, in my opinion, problems in priorities in Israel, which is giving monies to the occupied territories.
When you are together, then you have power. When you have trust, you can do stuff. And that's why there's a doctrine about how you break up a protest movement. You need to take the grassroots away. You need to take the territory away so you don't have where to meet. You want to take the people that are more recognized and put them away.
Actually, it was forcibly was evacuated from the streets through violence. The cops really came and took the tents out. Now, after the protest was scattered, you can still see some of the tent camps that survive only with homeless people, with people that have no other way, no other place to go. And this doesn't attract the attention of the media.
If you ask most Israelis what did the protest do for them, what it changed, they would tell you nothing. This was the biggest protest the world has seen in the last 3 years, but there was no actual, it just disappeared within political nanoseconds.
For many people, they're so disappointed that, this big protest died and they crushed us. And I think about it as something that just started, there's a long way. Maybe it's going to take 5 years, 10 years, 50 years.
I think that the discourse has changed completely. There are more than 600 new groups that were assembled of activists. There are more lectures for youth about leadership. Financial reporters became some of the most important reporters in the country.
There's much more will to cooperate, to do things together. And we have that glimmer. We remember that there were a few months where things looked different, where people had hope. And that hope is missing right now. But we know that it was, and we know that it can be again.
I think that the most important thing, is that you had 500,000 people in the largest protest we had during that year. And that protest and that moment and that experience of coming together changed those 500,000 people.
After the protest, people decided to set up new organizations, cooperatives bar, cooperative supermarkets, cooperative banks.
I think that maybe now the people understand that they have more power than they thought they had, that they could translate their power to actually activism.
This was the first time that we as an organization and a lot of others could be heard though. All right? And we can bring our agenda that was considered to be radical left-wing into the center of Tel Aviv.
This revolution, it's about people and it's for the people and it's the people's voice. So no one's voice is, I don't know, smarter or greater than the others. It's us to connect and it's us to decide what we want, what is wrong for us, what is not. It's us to connect. This is the revolution, the connecting itself. And what will be the outcome of this? It will be fine. We just need to connect.
I think this is what protest is about. It's creating new norms, new borders, new lines, new understandings, new reality.
I think that we already seeing the change. I think that this discourse in Israel changed. I think the political map in Israel is starting to change. And I think that it's too early to say that the social protest failed.
If you're an optimistic person, you think that something has changed.